Whoa, cheating. Ah! Oh, I just caught him cheating. I'm so upset. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. Have you ever been in that situation? I have. And I'm sure that many of you watching have, whether you're a male or a female, you might have had this happen to you. Well, I had somebody who wrote a letter to me and they asked me for some advice on this. And I happen to know some relationship experts. So I said, you know what? I'm going to bring Scott and Nancy Kiesling on the show to share how best to handle this situation. Maybe you're going through this now. Maybe you've gone through this in the past, or maybe you'll go through it in the future. How would it be to be armed in case something like that happens, in your life? So I'm going to bring on Scott and Nancy. And Scott and Nancy, welcome to the show. I'm excited to have you guys here today. You say something just to make sure I can hear you.
Yeah. Hi, Linda.
Yeah. Thank you for having us. We really appreciate you having us on.
Yeah, we're excited.
Well, what's interesting is I could have just answered the question myself, right, to her privately. But now I'm not going to mention her name. I'm going to read her story just so you guys know. I'm going to read it. I took out some names so you guys wouldn't know who I'm referring to, but I'm going to actually read her story so you can hear the emotion in it and what she's gone through. But I could have answered this question myself, or I said, you know what, why not share this with the world? Because there's somebody out there who's been cheated on. Frankly, there are a lot of people who have been cheated on, and maybe they didn't handle it the best way they could have. So why not bring on experts so that they can talk about this? But before we get started with the letter, I want you guys to just tell everybody a little bit about yourselves. I know you live on a boat, so every once in a while you might have to pop out because the internet connection, and then pop back in. So why don't you tell everybody just a little bit about yourselves?
Yeah. Well, and I'm glad you mentioned that, Linda, about, I think several perspectives on a situation is always great, but it's also, which we'll get to, it's not always what you think when it comes down to these situations. So we're excited that you invited us to share our knowledge and our opinion here. But our life, we live on a sailboat. So we live in Savannah, Georgia right now, but we are traveling down the coast to Cuba, making our way and enjoying life along the way and figuring out how to manifest everything that we want and desire in the process, and helping others to do the same. And that's really our passion behind that part. What'd you say?
Yeah. Yeah. And as a result of what we do, our clients and people that we work with get to have the best life that they can experience, and make the choices that lead them in that direction.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. Thank you. I'm so glad to have you guys here. And before we get started, also, I like to first, my name is Linda West with Living Live. Please go to my Facebook page, follow and like my page, Living Live Inc. So that way you can be notified of when we go live on various platforms. But then also, if this is of interest to you, or maybe you know somebody who's recently been cheated on, or maybe you know somebody who's being cheated on right now, but they don't know. Share this video out, but don't say, hey, you're being cheated on, you need to watch this. Don't do that. But share this video out, because this is going to be extremely valuable information for people that loved ones, and you just never know when you might be the one who's in that seat. And then also, I want to say hello to Brigitte. We have Brigitte. She's tuning in from Cape Town, and so I want to thank you so much for tuning in. I know it's early morning for you there in Cape Town. So thanks for this background. Actually, Brigitte, this is really just a piece of cloth. And it's all wrinkly, but I like the wrinkly. I was like, should I iron it? And I was like, no, I like the wrinkly. So what do you guys think of the wrinkly? It kind of adds character, right?
It does. It totally does. It's like a canvas art backdrop.
And another thing I like about this, because I do a lot of live streams, and with this platform that I'm using right now, it's called StreamYard, and I'll just put it up there, really quick. StreamYard that I'm using. One thing I like about it is you can put what they call overlays on, and oh shoot, I didn't prepare our overlay. Dang it. Well, this here is an overlay that I put up there, and I can show that on the screen. But also, I'll use as an example, this is called an overlay, where I can have this logo here, and then I can have, mine is above you guys, so I can't point at it. But I can, yeah, there we go. You guys pointed out.
Right above your head.
But what's cool about this background, the reason I'm mentioning this, what's cool about this background is because I can pop overlays up and I can pop stuff up on the screen while I'm while I'm going live is if I move like a little bit to this way, I have room over here. I'm always backwards. I have room over here for me to put words up and they don't go over on my face. So anyway, let's.
It's a great platform for what we do, right?
Yeah.
For these broadcasts.
Yes. Oh, it's
and
fantastic.
to be in a broadcast system and be able to put your little green screen or your little piece up there and your overlay. And no, it's a great, I wish we had better internet. I really do.
One day.
Yeah, maybe, in some locations you probably have better internet than others, but maybe not when you're out in the middle of the ocean, huh?
Yeah.
That's cool. Well, I want to dive right into this because, I have been cheated on and I just had so much anger about it. And almost like, I just had I was seeing red, just so much anger and like passion. You can be angry and anger is a passion. It's a form of passion, right? But there's also like love is passion. But, so when I read her letter, I got tears in my eyes and I realized I got the tears in my eyes because it reminded me of way back years ago when I had been cheated on.
Oh yeah.
And that stuff doesn't just leave, right? It's
it can. You can take those triggers, which is what happened with you. You were triggered by this old memory, and what happens is you get triggered because your fight or flight response kind of comes up. Because even though you're just reading it, there's something that wasn't dealt with all the way.
Yeah,
and it triggers us into, oh boy, don't go down that road. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
The pain, right? Like, why would I want to experience that pain again or something, right? Well, so if you're watching this, you have any questions or comments, whether you're watching the live or watching the replay, go ahead and put those questions in there and Scott and Nancy will see them later if you're watching the replay. If you're watching us live, we'll go ahead and address those questions while we go. So I'm going to go ahead and read the letter and have you guys on the screen while I'm reading it. So here it is. And it really was like a, oh my gosh, dear Abby letter, like, dear Linda. So I have a story to tell you. Hope you will help me with some advice. And if I get a little emotional during this letter, just ignore me, okay? Ignore my emotion, because this is not about me. This is about her.
Just to be clearly and fully transparent, I may get emotional as well, but go ahead.
Cool. Awesome. I love it. I was in a relationship 3 years ago. He was my first love ever. I was only 23 years old at the time. I met him at work. We were together for a year and I was so happy that I finally had a boyfriend. I accepted him as my boyfriend, even though my aunt was against it. We were together for a year. There was no physical intimacy since it's against my belief, which is a good thing. And he understood because he said he loves me. I loved him so much. It was like he was my world, my everything. He was so sweet. When the time I needed him, he was very open to me. Our relationship was full of love and understanding. He said he was so lucky to have me until one day, the love of my life cheated on me. When I found out he was cheating, I was so upset, but I tried to accommodate him. I tried to reason it out and be open-minded about it, to let him have a lover because maybe he needed that and I couldn't give him that at the time. That was in 2016, so 3 years ago. When I did begin to understand, I began to cry uncontrollably with pure, unadulterated grief until I decided to travel and move for good in order to start over again. I resigned from my previous job and moved. Oops, I moved up. Hold on a second. I found out that they got married last month. But I'm still here trying to move forward with my life, even though that happened. It's really hard, though. I miss him, the guy that I thought I knew. But I realize now that the person I thought I knew never even existed other than in my own mind and my heart. Because the person I thought I knew would never, ever have done this to me. And that means that person never existed. They were just a figment of my imagination. Since it was my first time, It's hard for me to move on, to move forward. Entertaining again, love again. I have a trust issue problem. My question, how can I overcome this and begin to trust?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a great question.
Mm-hmm.
We we see this a lot, unfortunately. Now, it being so her beliefs, right, were to, maybe I should allow this because of their culture and, men need sex and these beliefs that are put on her as a child from 0 to 7, 8, 9 years old. And in the culture, maybe that's okay. People cheat on people because men need that. And we grow up with these beliefs of, well, maybe he's the only one I'm going to get. Right. And there's a lot of beliefs that can go into the things that we start to tell ourselves a story about. And so her story was that she knew who this person was and that he was good and he was going to meet her expectations and her belief system. But then there was this conflicting belief about what men in her culture need to have and what is okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And it's, every relationship from the time until the time I met Scott, I had these kind of things happen. I've been cheated on. It went down that road. And you do end up in that place. The toughest part is feeling like, oh, I felt like I knew this person so well and they betrayed you. And you feel like in that moment, the person you'd be running to tell, holy crap, this person just did this to me, is that person, because they're your best friend, right? So you're stuck in that hard place of feeling betrayed and angry and sad. But as you come out of it, which I'm sure this woman is noticing, you start to see things that you thought the relationship was the best, was so strong, was perfect, was great when this happened, but it wasn't. And there are the rare circumstances where the person that cheated is lying the entire time, stringing someone along. But most of the time, the relationship has started to break down and it started to become brittle. And it's hard to notice this because you're in this place of love and you feel like you're giving everything under the sun. But as you go through the healing process and come out, you really start to see where you also played a part in becoming unavailable and becoming a part of the relationship not being at its 100%, meaning you didn't give yourself 100% of the time. And a big part in the healing process is learning that and taking that responsibility for yourself. And that helps with then moving forward to go with the trust issues that she's now facing. And Linda, feel free to chime in at any point in here with your opinions as we go along. But, I was raised in a family with all women. I'm one of 5 girls. I'm the baby of 5 girls in my family. So there was a lot of talk of heartbreak and relationship and, men and learning about women and how they think and the way that we act and how we can lie to ourselves and how we can go down these roads of feeling like, no, I did every single thing that I could. But there's 2 to tango in a relationship all the time. And there's patterns that we all have and beliefs that we all have. And the beliefs create those patterns. So, for instance, my relationships of always going down the same pattern, there was a reason to that. And it's looking within to discover what is that reason and why does this keep happening? What am I doing? And not to beat yourself up like, oh, there's something wrong with you, but there's patterns and beliefs there.
What's interesting is even getting away just from the love and the trust and the belief and stuff like that. I mean, our beliefs, like Scott mentioned, right, from 0 to 7 years old, they're saying that I hear that those are the instrumental times of our life. That's when a lot of our belief system is injected into us, so to speak. But just this is a silly thing, but this was my belief because of what I saw and what I witnessed in my household. And I believed, I'm going to tell you, it's so silly, but I truly believe that men did not eat salad because my dad never ate salad. And when I met my husband and he eats salad, he eats a lot of salad and he eats vegetables, I just thought he was like feminine because it was only girls who ate salad. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
As ridiculous as that belief is, it was a belief because of like you're talking about, it was my surroundings and that was what my belief was.
Right. So, yeah. And if a belief can be that strong about salad, just imagine what other beliefs are under there, and that's really, that's the biggest part of the process of moving forward.
That really, oh, wow. I just got goosebumps right now because I've never heard it like said that way. Thank you so much. But because I grew up in an extremely volatile, abusive, alcoholic household. And so they say you typically marry somebody just like your dad, right? Women marry somebody just like their dad and men marry someone just like their mom is kind of like what the saying is. I don't know how true it is, but it's a saying. But what's interesting is, and I look back and my belief growing up was that women put up with that. Women put up with being beat. Women put up with being called names. Women just put up with being yelled at, and you just put up with it because my mom put up with it. And so I did marry. My first marriage was to someone just like my dad. And then I was able to kind of change my belief system without knowing what I was doing. And when I met my current husband, we've been together for 30 years now. But man, it really does start, like it's here, right? We got to change this.
And you really do, to get away from the victim mindset and into a soulmate attraction mindset, where you really are attracting in the love of your life. It takes uncovering. It takes uncovering those beliefs to get to this place where you understand where they came from. And we have beliefs that serve us really well, that our parents and our caregivers and our siblings and our communities gave us. But we also have a lot of beliefs that were given to us, injected into us, like you said, that do not serve us well, right? I grew up in a similar household where, my father was the ruler and the rules were the rules, right? Boys didn't have emotion. Boys didn't cry. Boys didn't feel. You were a man. You had to be a man. And my mom was in a place at that time where she was very submissive in that relationship. He, back then they used to say, she was under his thumb, right? That's another saying that you use that word. And those sayings that we hear from the time that we're children instill beliefs. And we carry those beliefs around like they're our very own into our relationships and not only our husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, we bring them into all of our relationships, these beliefs that may not serve us very well. Yeah.
Yeah. Really, those beliefs are what you dive into to get what you want in life, whether it's your relationship, your job, your career, where you want to live, how you want your life to be. You dive in to start uncovering what those are, what you were raised with, and how they're affecting what you're getting in your life. Because we all have a choice every single time. Going back to her letter in the relationship, you at that point, and I know it's hard because we've been there, it's hard to go, okay, I have a choice to move forward. You kind of feel like you don't right there. You just want it back to how it was. But we have a choice to stay and hold on to it for 3 years and not move forward. Or we have a choice to go, you know what? I'm going to do something about this and figure it out now. I'm done. I'm sick of it. And move forward.
And we also have a choice. We also have a choice to look at that relationship and be happy for that person that he met his soulmate, that he married the person. And yeah, it hurts, right? I was married when I was cheated on. I had a son at the time. But we didn't have a relationship. I wasn't a partner to her. And so she found somebody who is a partner for her. And I couldn't be more happy for her in that respect. and to look at all of the great things you learned from that relationship and in that relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And we tend to look at the one bad thing in our life when there's 10 good.
Mm-hmm.
Look at those 10 good things.
Yeah.
And see the joy that brings you and the gratitude, right?
Yeah. No, it's so true.
Well, let me ask a question about that, because oftentimes people will say, oh, just let it go. Just let it go. And those are great words, but it's sometimes not as easy as it sounds, right? Just get over him. Just get over it. Mm-hmm. So how do you help people to go back into those deep-rooted beliefs, right? So that they can change their belief system, so that they can learn to not just let it go, but to like you said, that they found their soulmate. Mm-hmm. Why should I be so angry about what happened to me, when I should be happy for what they found and discovered? And I hope I find my soulmate too.
Yeah, and that's
such a good question.
Such a great question.
Yeah. The most important thing is to come from a place of compassion and non-comparison of yourself and your exes or the person that you're trying to move forward from.
Mm.
Like you said, looking at it from that gratitude state rather than, oh, I thought he was this person and he wasn't. Because it's not that he wasn't the person you thought he was, or she wasn't the person you thought he was. They were there for you at those times. They were there. And again, unless it's the rare circumstances where they had some family going on, or, they were lying to you the whole time. And again, that's a whole nother bag of whatever. But they are the person that they were. It's just the relationship broke down in a place that this happened. And to allow yourself the forgiveness of yourself, of where you didn't show up and where he didn't show up, and to learn from that so you can move forward and away from the blame game. Because that's what we all get into, is that blame game of everything else. And then we attack ourselves of, oh, I didn't, you start to see things like, wow, I didn't communicate what I wanted at all. And then you beat yourself up. That doesn't help either. So it really is looking in to uncovering that stuff and getting to a place of gratitude and compassion so you can move forward. And that will then enable you to let it go, if you want to use those terms. Because you move forward from a place of you understand, and now you're in an understanding place. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, and it really is we've heard it, everybody's heard it, right? Oh, just get over him. Oh, just time heals all wounds, right? Time does not heal all wounds.
Yeah.
Right? If you want to heal a wound, then you have to take responsibility for the actions you took to help to inflict that wound upon yourself. So if you crash your bicycle and you hit the road and you scar up your knee, it's not the bicycle's fault. It's not the road's fault, right? They had something to do with it, but there was a lack of your ability to ride the bicycle. Okay? And so when we uncover where those things come from, they can then reframe them in a way that does serve them. And to be able to start to look at that from a place of gratitude and really forgiveness for that person and for themselves.
Oh, that begs a question that just came up to mind is I keep looking down because I keep writing notes of things I want to make sure I ask and stuff. But the grief process, right? Because whether you have lost a loved one, to death, or you've lost a relationship, there's a grief process. Maybe you lost a job. Maybe you were fired from a job or something, but you've lost something in your life. There's a grief process we go through. So the question I have for you is, related to relationships, is there a way to speed up the grief process?
Yeah, that's a great question. There is. Mm-hmm. And the minute you realize that you are beginning that grief process, right? We go into grief a lot of times with our blinders on, where we're so angry, we're so frustrated. All we see is red and anger and hate.
Yeah.
Right? And that's all we see. When we have a mentor or a coach that can point that moment out for you, the grief has started. and process that grief, right? Don't not feel it. I'm not going to feel that. I'm not going to feel this, right? We tend to do that a lot in our lives where we distract from that feeling. We want to go through it. We want to feel it. It's part of nature and human behavior. But if we can recognize that we're beginning that grief process, if we can recognize that that grief is there, we can then unpack that grief and uncover the things that are in the grief to get through the anger, to the sadness of loss, to investigate the sadness of loss, to get to a new mindset, and so on, right?
Yeah, grief it's a coping mechanism. And no matter if it's losing a job, losing a loved one, someone dying, a relationship breaking up, it's our coping mechanism. And we are challenged through life, but where some are harder than others, either because they're tougher, the loss is stronger, or we haven't been through them yet, so the challenge is tougher. But it's always our choice when we're in that grief to know that we have complete control over how we feel. And you can look up other speakers, several whatevers, to figure out that is a true thing. People can control their ability to get through something. It's a learned process, yes. Some are stronger at it than others because of where they're at in life. But once you realize that part, then it's just learning the tools to be as strong as you can possibly be to get through that, because it's possible. It's just, how long do you want to stay in that? And my mother passed away. That was the toughest grief I had ever been through, and probably will ever go through. It taught me a lot. Yes, there was a grieving process, but there was also a point in my life where I had to wake up and realize, this is what it is. There's other cultures out there that look at loss and death and as a joyous moment. So it's not human nature. It's our beliefs and our culture that give us these things. So it is our choice. And that's the biggest thing to realize about yourself. It's always your choice.
I've been to some of the
take
best
responsibility.
Yeah, I've been to some of the best celebrations for instance, in Bali, where they were burying someone, and it is like going to a carnival. Yeah. There is cotton candy. There are toys being sold to kids.
It's a true celebration of life
because they know where that goes in their belief system, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Jack Canfield wrote a book called The Success Principles, and actually the number one success principle is to take 100% full responsibility for your life. Now, there are things that happen in our lives that I love to use Nelson Mandela as an example. He was imprisoned for 40 years. Now, he could have come out of there bitter and angry and all this hate and stuff, but no, he used those 40 years as time to get in touch with him and who he is. And, he just went on to become even a much more amazing person than he was when he went in. And so he could have made that choice, go into a bad place or go into a good place. And so in relationships, and you might say well, shoot, he cheated on me. He cheated on me. What's happening there? We're not taking responsibility for those words. The reality is he found somebody else, and maybe I wasn't fitting his full needs. And that's okay, because there's somebody out there for you. You just haven't found them yet. And I believe that because I found that my first husband was because I had such blinders on. I wasn't open to meeting more people. I wasn't open to learning more about who I am and what I actually want and what I need in my life. I just found the first thing that came along was the person that hey, he gave me these two amazing children that I have, right? But he and I just weren't a fit for each other. We just weren't a fit for each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I really can relate to that. My ex-wife and I are great friends, and we have an incredible family. All of us, our wife, our child, 20 years old. But we really worked on breaking that negative cycle, in the sense of stay together for the kids. And you know what? We weren't meant to be together. We were meant to have a child together who does amazing things, but we weren't meant to be together. We were meant to have different partnerships. And when you understand that, and you really can, and yes, would it have been great to have these conversations before it broke down to this point of, us cheating on each other and all these things? Absolutely.
Yeah.
But sometimes we don't have the communication skills to relay what we're going through.
Mm-hmm.
We're fighting, each of us, to meet our human needs. And we look at others like they're going to help us meet our needs.
Mm-hmm.
And it comes down to, we need to meet our own human needs in a healthy, respectful way to then coexist with someone who has who is meeting their human needs in a healthy, coadhesive way, right?
Yeah, most definitely.
That is interesting, right? Because we do look outside of ourselves to get our needs met so often, when really the reality is we need to get to know ourselves and who we are. And like, I love to talk about, people say, oh, I'm so proud of you that you did this or that or whatever. And for me, it's like, I don't have this need for people to be proud of me for what I've done, because you know what? I'm proud of what I've done. Mm-hmm. So I like look at inside for that answer rather than looking outside for validity, for people saying, oh, you're doing a great job. I love it. Don't get me wrong. I love it when people say it, but it's not a need that I have. I'm not searching on the outside to find out who's approving what I'm doing, who's right. So it's kind of interesting. Yeah. And I want to switch the conversation to the cheater. Mm-hmm. And the reason I want to switch the conversation to the cheater, because there might be people out there who are currently watching this, who are in a relationship, who either are currently cheating or they have a strong urge to cheat. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about that. For those who may be going through this kind of thoughts, emotions, whatever is bringing them there, what would you say to them?
Yeah, of course.
I can speak to this pretty well.
Okay.
I have been the cheater from the earliest time in my childhood. I have cheated or been cheated on. I've done a lot of cheating, and I'm going to say it again. I have cheated a lot. And what it came down to for me, right, is that I had a belief that I didn't deserve to have someone, that everybody does leave or cheat because of the background of where I come from in my story. There was a lot of abandonment issues in my life. And so with that came this, well, I'll do it to them before they do it to me. Mm-hmm. I'll leave her before she leaves me. I'll cheat before they cheat. I will, right? And so because of the beliefs that I had within myself, these limiting beliefs of that I wasn't worthy of true love and that everybody would leave, that became my pattern. And so even when I was in what I would have considered a great relationship, at some point my subconscious kicked in to go, now remember, you're getting close to that time where this can't last. Nothing lasts forever, right? Mm-hmm. And as we grow up as men, as we grow up and we, again, are infused with these beliefs that society and the world and our caregivers and our parents and all these people give us, our abusers give us, we then learn to keep ourselves at that distance, right? And so what I would say to any man that is contemplating the cheating or is involved in cheating,
or woman,
right? Yeah. You already know deep down inside in your heart that what you're doing is wrong and that you're hurting somebody. And then we allow the story to start to run to go, well, they're going to leave me anyway. They're probably cheating too. They don't really love me the way that I love them, right? It could be anything. But these stories start to kick in to validate our own, well, maybe that's not, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's not, again, it's the blame game, even from that perspective, which I have been in my life, to where you are doing that. And it comes down to, again, it's the flip side, yes, but it's the same issues. We all have our own crap, our own problems, our own stuff, but it always comes down to the same basic things. So you're doing those things because of your beliefs. So you are telling those stories as a way to validate yourself, but also to put the blame so you're not that bad. And again, you're not showing up 100% in the relationship, but neither is the person. So again, it's the non-communication there for those people to not be communicating effectively of what isn't working, so they go the other way. And that's really where the relationships start to break down, is that communication barrier.
It's really, communication really is a dance, right? We weave in and out, and we have communication issues, with so many different areas in our lives. And it's not always it's how we communicate with others, but not only that, it's how our filter interprets what the other person said, right? Based on our upbringing, our experiences, our life, and what have you. Now, I wrote another note here. Because cheating really has nothing to do with the partner, right? So like we're talking about the letter, for example, he cheated on her. So really it had nothing to do with her. It was his needs. His needs weren't getting met, and he was trying to find out where he could go get those needs met, instead of him realizing that he needed to get his needs met within himself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be accurate. Because Scott, you had that exact situation. So how did you come to realize that it was all you, that you needed to change your beliefs, change the way you are, change your actions, so that you could find the love of your life, Nancy?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it wasn't so much that I felt like I needed to change who I was, but more my beliefs, the limiting beliefs that I was given to from other people. And so with coaching and mentors, I took time off. I took a 3-year sabbatical with no dating to work on myself, and got coaches and mentors and read books and went to seminars, and I went across the world to different places to learn about cultures and relationships and cultivating those relationships, and learning how to communicate. I did not have communicating skills. I did not have relationship building skills. And so to take a step back and to learn more as opposed to change more, right? The change will come with the learning. And as I learned more about myself and communicating with me, communicating my needs to myself, then all of a sudden, as those things uncovered and as my mindset changed, it started to attract in. I started to allow for these relationships that were communicative, right? There was no, I started to meet people that did communicate well, and that helped me to communicate better about my needs and their needs.
Yeah, and fit that. It's, because I did the same thing. You take that time to look into yourself, which is what, when we have clients come to us, that's one of our requirements, is that as you're working with us, you have to take that break for yourself, because you can't continue with your old ways while you're trying to learn a new way. And a lot of people look at their situations and go, well, I'll just, they keep trying to figure it out themselves. And sometimes you get there, but sometimes if you are looking at your life and your situation, and when you talk about it, it's the same thing. You're saying the same thing of, wow, I always get cheated on, or wow, the relationship always ends like this, or I always end up in this situation, or these types of people.
This always happens to me.
That's a pattern, and you need to look at that for what that is, a pattern that keeps happening. And the only way to figure that out and basically break the pattern and start a new one is to do what we're saying, go within and look at that within yourself and develop why you tick like you tick and why you attract in what you attract in.
Yeah, and uncover those things to to get out of the victim mindset and into a soulmate attraction mindset, to then have the energy space that attracts in what you truly do want, and not that conflicting belief about what you want.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's interesting too, because I wrote a note here. So Nancy, when Scott communicated to you that he had, because he's obviously communicated it to you, right? That he had been cheating, he had cheated in his past. Did you at that point ever, or have you ever saw signs of things that made you question, like, I wonder if he's cheating on me?
No, because I'm in a completely different place than I was in my past relationships because of the work I put in. And that's the thing. We can go looking for evidence of, and I don't mean looking for evidence and shall find. You can create things in your head. And again, that's what we do in the past. We go into relationships with the idea of, oh, this is probably going to happen because it's happened 100 times before. Even if you don't realize that's your thought, because when you first go into a relationship, it's all head over heels. You're like, oh, they're beautiful, and I just want to make out with them all day, and your heart's fluttering, so you don't notice the subconscious going on. But it's there. Again, it's that same thing. If you take a break from just not dating for 6 months, a year, 3 years, but you don't do the work, you feel like, oh, time heals, and you go back in, same stuff happens. That's why. So you're not going into the relationship with the evidence of, you know what, when he acts like this, that means, because it doesn't mean. He's a totally different person than everyone else I've dated. And so were the other people. They were different than the one before them and the one before them. But my belief system was, if they behave in this manner, it triggered, just like when you read the letter, triggered something in me that I didn't even realize, and makes you then change your energy. And energy is huge. And we speak on that a lot, because it is what attracts in what you have in your life, whether it's a crappy job or crappy relationship or great stuff. So when you go in with a total different energy of knowing that this person is completely different than anyone else, because he's got different fingertips, different DNA, all that stuff.
And that you're different.
And then I'm now different of how I'm going to go into things. Things look different, and things, you take them different. So you don't go down those roads, and you see them for what they are, and your communication is so much stronger, and you're confident in that area to bring things up and talk about things, which that's what really squashes everyone's relationships in the past, is they don't talk about that stuff when stuff comes up for them, like, wow, that just made me think of something and I kind of feel silly saying it. So you don't say anything. So then the
salad thing
starts to kick.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. And there's so go ahead.
Go ahead. Well, so what you reminded me of is when I first met my current husband. Like I say, we've been together 30 years now. We're almost 31 years. And when I first met him, I had actually taken a hiatus from dating because I had dated so many turds. I was like, I'm just ready to just give up on men. And I read a book. It was called How to Be Married 1 Year from Today. And the book, actually, the only thing I got out of the whole book, it was to write a list of the 10 most important things that you want in your mate. And so I wrote my list, but really it's just the law of attraction is all it was. It said to look at your list every single day, imagine yourself. So it was the law of attraction. And that's what I attracted. I actually ended up attracting my husband 6 months later. Now, we weren't married a year from today, but the reason I'm telling this story is because at the beginning of the relationship, I was not ready to fall in love. I had typically fallen in love in a week. That was my pattern. I would just meet somebody, I'd fall in love with them in a week, and then I would get my heart broken, and that was my pattern. So this time, because I had taken a hiatus, away, and I was trying to get to know who I am a little bit. When I met him, I didn't fall in love with him right away. It took about 6 or 7 months. And then I used to tell him on a daily basis, you love me, you just don't know it yet. And I put that in his mind for like 3 years before we finally got married. But, we have been together for 3 years. It's funny because when you mentioned that, Nancy, I just dawned on me that I was attracting to myself this man that I wanted so much. And I made sure that he knew I would be here because he had always had women run out on him. So he was like, oh, you won't be in my life very long, so why am I going to put a whole lot into it? It was his attitude. But now here we are almost 31 years later. And so he knows I'm not going anywhere.
That's interesting. That's really how I met Nancy. Within my within my 3-year break, and I do yoga and I meditate every day, and I had never been just friends with a woman, ever. It always was going to lead to something, or it did lead to something. Always. I never just had a friend. So when I was doing my work, I would sit to meditate and I would ask for exactly what I was looking for. I would, this beautiful woman who didn't want anything to do with me romantically, and we could just be great friends forever. And then I would, that was my one little thought as I meditated, and then I would just meditate. And I don't meditate in the sense of like this thought. I meditate with a very fluid mind, allowing thoughts to come in and out and not attaching to them. And I would repeat that each time I began my meditation, and lo and behold, 3 years later, this woman walks in my life who is incredible and just wanted a friendship. So we got to court each other for a year before anything really went to, oh, well, this could go further.
Well, and because you put that work in the process, because again, you meditating, energy, attraction, you can't sit there and go, I want, but not look into the why things haven't been going the way you want. Even if it's money and you're not making the kind of money you want in your business, you can't just hope for it. You got to look at where's your blocks? What blocks do you have in there? And that goes with every single area of your life,
Yeah, that's so awesome. I love that you realized that, right? Because that's part of the steps is realizing or acknowledgement that something needs to change. Like, what do they say? If you do the same thing over and over and over again and expect a different result, that's the definition of insanity, right? So you had to change something, your beliefs, like you said, your beliefs. I was thinking about, let's go back to the trust issues, because let's help our listener, who wrote in. And so now she has trust issues. How can she now, let's maybe give her a tip, 1 or 2 tips that she can walk away with to help her to break through those trust issues, so now that she can trust.
Yeah, that's great. And so important to give her that tool, right? So that she can move forward through this. Yeah. And from me, the first thing that I would say would be to, again, realize your part in where the relationship took a turn. And we can say all day long, I didn't have a part. We can say that all day long. But until we truly, truly recognize that we had a hand in what went on, from that point on, it will open up automatically, right? The realization of that and taking the responsibility of that will gain some of that trust in people back. And again, looking at it from a place of compassion and forgiveness for the cheater and yourself, and knowing that what you seek is out there and that wasn't it. And being grateful that you finally saw the sign, because there were many signs that were leading you in the direction that this wasn't the right relationship.
Yeah.
So to not trust others because of a failed relationship that wasn't supposed to be anyway. And you know how I know that it's not.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
So to stop comparing, oh, this guy's going to be just like that guy. And again, it comes to that realization within ourselves of where that came from. Yeah. Nancy?
Yeah. It is. The tough part is we look in and we have these trust issues, but they're coming from a place of your standards are not in the place they need to be. So you knew when you start to realize these things, you realize, okay, I see these red flags. And like when she found out, and now she continues on with the relationship, knowing they have that communication there that they're going to move forward. Again, when you feel it goes against the standards you have. So building those stronger. And that comes from what we've just been talking about this whole time, really looking in and looking at, writing down what exactly you want, what you want in a relationship, what kind of person you want, and not faltering on that ever. And the only way to get strong on that, because that's easy to say, right? Of course, but then it happens and you're like, well, I really love him. The way to get strong on that is to do the work we're talking about, of going within and being sick and tired of the game. But the non-comparison is the biggest part in that, because we do it in everything. We do it in how we, look at the world, of what people wear, the cars they drive, everything. So to notice how often we walk around comparing our life and our situation on every given day to other things. And then looking at it, going back and looking at your relationship, but where did you do that in the relationship? And noticing that, because when you notice it, you can't go back. You can't go back to not noticing it. And those are the steps. Again, it's taken this long to get where they are. Everyone that's been in these places, it's going to take some work to get out and notice these things. But it's the baby steps, so you notice that. But then you're going to have the triggers come up, and that's where you develop the strength, and the going within and uncovering develops that strength. And
having the tool set to work on that, right?
Yeah, to keep moving forward with not comparing and noticing when you're doing that, and to just keep putting a foot in front of the other.
Yeah, and I'd like to just touch on the list, because you both spoke of it, and writing down the things that you want, right? And creating that list. Well, it's just as important if you're starting this work, if you're starting this practice. It's just as important to write down things you will not stand for again.
Yeah.
From yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
From yourself.
From yourself.
Yeah.
What will I not stand for in a relationship that is my pattern that I did, right? We know what we won't stand for from our partner, right? That's the easy part.
Yep.
What will you not stand for from yourself in another relationship?
Yeah.
And that's a very important aspect that we use in our uncovering method to move people through this type of situation.
Yeah, because it's not always the easy things that you think of, if he cheats on me, I'll just move along. It's the stuff within the nitty gritty of the relationship that you won't stand for, of not communicating or whichever.
And that was mine. Like, I wouldn't stand for again from me to be silent, right? I had a pattern of, I had conversations in my head with my ex-spouse, my ex-girlfriends. I had whole conversations within my head, and I would swear to you that you said this, I told you. No, I was silent.
Yeah.
And it was all these stories that went on in my head. And that, for me, was one of the things I would not stand for me again.
Yeah.
So I'm very emotional. I'm very vocal in things that trigger me. If we don't communicate about something, it comes up, and it doesn't come up a week later.
Yeah.
It comes up right now, and not in a combative sense, right? It comes from a place of love, because I want her to understand where I'm coming from. And I want to understand where she's coming from. Yeah. And that takes communication.
Yeah.
And that takes a lot of work.
To
communicate that way.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, it takes work. This practice is not easy, but it's...
And relationships aren't, in any sense. Business, life, sisters, siblings, love. But what's it worth to you? What do you want in your life, and how much is your life worth? And that's where you have to draw the line with yourself, of making a change if things aren't the way they're going. We're not promised tomorrow, and that's a cliche, but it's true. So it really comes down to that.
Yep.
Yeah, it's so true. And that's one thing. I noticed I'm getting a little bit of feedback. Are you guys hearing it?
No.
No.
Okay, as long as you're not hearing it, that's okay. So let's finish with one last question. I've heard the saying, when you go through a breakdown, that's when your best breakthroughs occur. So talking about relationships, have you guys heard that saying? And if not, but how would you be able to relate that to relationships to help her, again, to get through 3 years of this being on her mind? So she can go and move on with her life and find that love of her life and gain the trust that she's looking for.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's really, it's important, because each time is going to seem like the worst. And it will be, your breakdown moment will be when you finally never end up back there again. But again, it's your choice. When do you want that moment to be? Because each one seemed awful every time I went through it. It was the worst ever. But when it was the last one, that's the one back on all of them now. And that's where the growth comes from, looking back on each one to grow from that and knowing that it happened for a reason. It gave you something. Look at the situation for that and find out what it taught you and step forward from there with gratitude that you have a life ahead of you of all sorts of possibility. Jump into it. It's time to do that now.
Yeah, that's really great. That's really great. The breakdown part really gets us to this place of, rock bottom, if you will. So within the breakdown and the anger and the grief and the loss and in dealing with that, if again, once you start to recognize it, that breakdown is actually a buildup. Because what it's doing is, again, once you recognize it, once this awareness comes about it, you get to see all the places that you weren't meeting your human needs. You get to see all the places that maybe you didn't show up 100%. Mm-hmm. And you get to see all the places where your belief isn't what you truly, truly believe or feel. Like for this young lady, well, maybe he needs that, and so we'll stay together while he has sex with other people, because that's what men have to have. That's a belief, right? If you communicate that with a man who is of a conscious, awakened state, that's not the truth, right? So that breakdown gives you all this great information for your breakthrough. But you have to recognize it and you have to be aware of it. And that's where coaches and mentors come into place to give you those nuggets, to show you where you may be stuck in a limiting belief, stuck in a victim mindset, and stuck in an energy space that just doesn't attract in the things that you want. Mm-hmm. So by uncovering those and getting into the soulmate attraction mindset, a more positive mindset, it will change your energy space. And the choice to move forward is where she needs to really start. Mm-hmm. She needs to make a choice that she doesn't want to live like this anymore, because it is our choice. Mm-hmm. We choose to stay stuck because it's comfortable. It meets our human needs. People care about us because we're in this place of pity, right?
Yeah, it's where you put your focus.
It's a choice. You can choose to crawl out of this darkness. You can choose to get out of the hole. You can choose to put down the baggage. You can choose to empty the evidence bag that has kept you in this place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's great.
Wow, thank you. Yeah, thanks for sharing. That was awesome. And I just noticed that I had your website wrong. I had Scott and Kiesling instead of Scott and Nancy. I just changed it though to Scott and Nancy Kiesling. I just changed it. But I want to thank you guys so much for coming on a Sunday afternoon to talk about this topic. I think it's a really important topic, and this can help so many different people on different levels. And coaches and mentors, they're so important in every aspect of our life. A lot of people might think that coaches are only for sports, but that's not true. There's coaches in so many different areas. So if you're having troubles in your own life, not finding somebody, because maybe you have this yearning to have a person is in your life, a relationship, and it's just not working out for you, I highly recommend reaching out to Scott and Nancy. You go to scottandnancykiesling.com, go to their website. You can also go follow them and like their page, Scott and Nancy Kiesling on Facebook. And my name is Linda West of Living Live Inc. Also go follow and like my page as well. You guys, thank you so much for this topic. I really appreciate it. And I swear we could talk for hours, because I've got so many more notes that I wasn't able to cover today. So maybe what we'll do is bring you back in about 3 months or so, and we'll talk about another topic that's related to relationships, because relationships are everywhere.
And again,
exactly.
we do have people who write into our website with questions.
Yeah.
So whether it's, you're single and you're looking for a relationship, instead of having a single coach, we coach together because we're married. But we also take questions on our website and we answer them. We'll answer you directly, whether it's in one of our lives.
There's a spot for Ask Scott and Nancy. So any questions you have in regards to your relationships, marriage maintenance, any of that stuff, we're more than happy to shoot you an answer back.
Marriage maintenance, I love it.
Linda,
thank you so much.
For having us.
Abigail just popped in, said thanks for sharing this. Yeah, Abigail, this is it's helpful for any relationship, whether you're already married or you're looking for somebody. Maybe you're single, maybe you're in a boyfriend girlfriend relationship right now. This is actually helpful information to you for your life, period. So thank you so much for tuning in. And I want to thank you guys again. So go again to scottandnancykiesling.com. They have a place there for you to ask questions if you want to ask them questions directly, or go to their Facebook page and follow and like them on Facebook. So we are part of the Next Impactor competition. It's really awesome. Those who don't know about the Next Impactor, go to thenextimpactor.com. Check it out. We're in the running for a grand prize, which is awesome. It's kind of like, I like to say it's kind of a cross between The Voice, American Idol, and The Apprentice.
And maybe a little bit of
America's Got Talent too, with the votes coming from the public,
And what's the American Race one? I feel a little bit of that in there too. With the challenge.
I don't know that one. The Great Race or something. I don't know. But thank you guys, and we're on the same team together, so it's really awesome. Oh, she just got out of church. She'll watch the replay. If you have any questions, Abigail, while you're watching it, please ask the questions in the comments, and Scott and Nancy will see them as well. So you guys have a great day and enjoy your boat.
Thank you. Thanks for having us on.
Linda.
You're welcome. Thank you. Go Team Melissa. Woo, woo.
All right. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.